When people think of the Flintstones, they remember the bright colors, the quirky stone gadgets, and the prehistoric humor that transformed modern life into caveman parody. But beneath that cheerful animation, there exists a surprisingly profound emotional landscape. The episode Cómo elegir una pelea contigo demonstrates this beautifully. It is not simply a cartoon about a married couple's argument. It is a tender, humorous, and deeply honest meditation on the imperfections of love. By turning a small domestic quarrel into a reflection on pride, forgiveness, and vulnerability, the episode transcends its genre and becomes something more. A miniature study of human behavior. The story begins as many marital conflicts do, without warning and without logic. Fred Flintstone wakes up already irritable, his morning ruined by the sound of his alarm bird squawking too loudly. Wilma, calm but firm, reminds him that it's his turn to take Dino for a walk. What should be a trivial exchange slowly unravels into a full-scale confrontation. Fred, feeling cornered, lashes out. Wilma, refusing to be silenced, stands her ground. What follows is a cascade of small irritations. Breakfast burnt, coffee spilled, the wrong shirt pressed, that fuse into something bigger than either of them intended. In that escalation, we recognize a universal truth. Most of our greatest arguments begin as something ridiculously small. From the first few minutes, the episode constructs its rhythm like a musical composition. Each line of dialogue serves as a note, sharp, quick, and deliberate. Fred's booming voice contrasts with Wilma's measured calm, creating a dynamic that oscillates between tension and affection. The sound design complements this tension. Clattering dishes, stomping feet, and the rhythmic hum of bedrock life outside. Yet the emotional pulse of the episode lies in what remains unsaid, the small silences that follow each sarcastic remark. Those pauses carry more meaning than words, capturing the weight of pride and the ache of misunderstanding. Visually, the Flintstones turns domestic chaos into art. The exaggerated movements, the flailing arms, the rolling eyes, the dramatic sighs, make the conflict humorous but also strangely relatable. There's something timeless about watching two people who know each other so well still fail to understand each other. The set design, the stone furniture, the fossil television, the dinosaur appliances, becomes a metaphor for the heaviness of routine, for how love can fossilize when left unexamined. The animators use every object around Fred and Wilma to reflect their emotional state. The flickering light from the stone lamp when tempers flare, the slow drip of the cave faucet when exhaustion sets in. Every frame feels alive with feeling. When Fred finally storms out of the house, muttering complaints under his breath, the narrative takes a quieter turn. The outside world of Bedrock becomes a landscape of introspection. Fred walks past familiar places, the quarry, the bowling alley, the stone diner. But nothing brings him comfort. Even his best friend Barney seems unable to make him laugh. In these scenes, the humor softens into melancholy. Fred's bravado fades, replaced by the kind of silence that follows regret. What makes this section powerful is its restraint. The episode does not force sentimentality. It allows the quiet to speak for itself. We see a man wrestling not with his wife's words, but with his own inability to listen. Back home, Wilma moves through the house in silence. She tidies up the mess from their argument, picks up the broken dish, and sits by the window, watching Pebbles play with Dino. Her face, drawn with a subtle sadness, says everything. She loves Fred, but she's tired. Tired of the same cycle of misunderstanding. Tired of having to be the mature one. Tired of waiting for an apology that never comes. In that still moment, she feels profoundly human. Animation, in its simplicity, often captures emotion more honestly than realism ever could. The viewer doesn't see a prehistoric woman. They see themselves, sitting in a quiet room, thinking about the one person they wish would just say, "I'm sorry." When Fred finally returns home, it is nighttime. The stone house looks different now, less like a home, more like a monument to stubbornness. He hesitates at the door. For a moment, he considers walking away again. But then he hears Wilma humming softly inside. That melody, fragile and familiar, draws him in. He opens the door and finds her sitting at the table, not angry anymore, just tired. There's no dramatic apology, no grand speech. Fred simply sits beside her. The silence between them is not empty. It's full of shared history, of laughter and frustration and love. When he reaches for her hand, she doesn't pull away. The camera lingers on that gesture, and the music swells gently, signaling not resolution but renewal. What makes this episode so emotionally resonant is its refusal to idealize love. It shows that affection doesn't erase anger, and that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Instead, it reveals the fragile dance of two people learning to coexist with each other's flaws. The title, ¿Cómo elegir una pelea contigo?, becomes ironic. It's not about learning how to fight. It's about realizing that sometimes fighting is unavoidable, and what truly matters is how we choose to end it. The humor that frames the episode is crucial. Without it, the story would risk becoming too heavy. But laughter, here, acts as a kind of emotional glue. Even in the middle of tension, there's absurdity. Fred's exaggerated tantrums, Wilma's witty comebacks, and the constant interruptions by Dino or the neighbors all remind us that life, no matter how dramatic, is never entirely tragic. The show captures the rhythm of real relationships, moments of laughter woven between moments of silence. The Stone Age backdrop, with its mix of the primitive and the familiar, becomes a playful reflection of modern emotional evolution. There's also a fascinating subtext about masculinity and vulnerability. Fred embodies a particular archetype, the proud man who confuses strength with stubbornness. His inability to express emotion is not cruelty, it's fear. Fear of appearing weak, fear of losing control. The episode subtly critiques this mindset without mocking it. By the end, Fred's quiet gesture of reconciliation, holding Wilma's hand, becomes a powerful act of courage. It reminds the viewer that tenderness is not the opposite of strength. It's the truest form of it. One might wonder why a simple argument between two cartoon characters feels so deeply real. The answer lies in how the episode merges humor and honesty. It doesn't exaggerate emotions for effect, it amplifies them for clarity. We laugh at Fred's temper, but we also recognize it. We sympathize with Wilma's patience, even when it borders on exasperation. The episode works because it refuses to be cynical. It believes in love, not as a fairy tale but as a daily effort. The humor doesn't trivialize the pain, it redeems it. Reflecting personally, this episode feels like a reminder that relationships are built not on the absence of conflict, but on the ability to endure it. I remember moments in my own life where a trivial disagreement grew into a storm, where pride spoke louder than affection. Watching Fred and Wilma struggle to communicate feels both comforting and confronting. It tells us that imperfection is not failure. It's proof that love is alive, still evolving, still learning how to speak. As the episode closes, the camera pans out to show the Flintstone house glowing warmly against the prehistoric night. Dino curls up beside the couch. Fred and Wilma share a quiet laugh, and life returns to its familiar rhythm. The message is simple yet profound. Peace is not permanent, but it's always possible. Every argument leaves a trace, but every reconciliation leaves a light. The balance between the two is what defines love. In the end, Como elegir una pelea contigo is not about choosing a fight. It's about choosing love again and again, even after the fight has ended. It's about understanding that the people who challenge us most are often the ones who teach us the most about ourselves. The Stone Age may have ended long ago, but the emotional lessons of Bedrock remain timeless.